Hi everyone, my name is Joel. Welcome to this video. It's going to be a series of videos on AI in practice covering three parts: tools, techniques, and thoughts. This targets the busy working professional who may have already played around with your basic tools, ChatGPT, DeepSeek, but you may not have had time to actually go further than that. And this is totally acceptable and totally fine. We ain't got time to go and explore every single exciting new tool just because someone in our office excites or enthuses over it. So that's where maybe this video comes in. And secondly, also some of these tools are paid features and tools, and you might be thinking to yourself, actually, are these worthwhile paying for? So hopefully, these sets of videos help to answer that. Okay, big overview of the series. There are three videos. There's going to be on tools, techniques, and thoughts. This first video is going to cover the three main tools I think that most working professionals would rely on research, knowledge management, and writing. Definitely, if there are more tools that you think I should cover or things that you're interested to learn more about, just let me know. Maybe if there's sufficient interest, I can cover them. That's the first video. Second video is going to be on techniques. I think this is going to be an advanced prompting level video that shows you how to prompt effectively to get the kind of inputs and outputs that you want out of the AI. And also just to think about not just prompting the AI for prompts, but actually how does that shape your own thinking and how do you build this into a repeatable process for effective outputs. The third video is going to be a little bit more philosophical. It's going to be on thoughts that may have emerged, perhaps in relation to the first two videos pertaining to AI work and the human mind. So that's going to be a more philosophical video built on the foundations of the first two. So let's think about actually what's the value proposition for this video series apart from your normal AI walkthroughs. I don't just want to show the tool just for the tool's sake, because I think many of the videos you can find on YouTube already do that very well. But I think what I want to do is take a first principles approach at what these tools are about. What's the problem that research faces? What is writing about? And then therefore how these tools come in and how AI enhances the existing work processes and workflows. Okay. So let's start with research. What is research about? At its core, it's about answering a question with reference to some information you have to go and source for, and then hopefully this whole process is a neat and tight process. Question formulation, data gathering, analysis, and synthesis. Synthesis is drawing all of the different information and data that you find together and then drawing conclusions. I'm going to go through two tools, Perplexity and Gemini's deep research. Perplexity is what I would consider, this is like the future of web research. Okay, so let's ground this in a real world context. I used to be a teacher in charge of football in my previous school, and one of the things that I constantly thought about is actually how I can help my students to better understand sports science. Because I mean, you're going to be an athlete, it will help if you understand how to go and exercise better, how you recover better, what kind of food you need to eat. Okay, so let's just try it out. What are the different workout plans like strength building and endurance? Okay, hopefully this will give me something, at least fill my mind with some ideas that I can consider sharing with my students. And very quickly, you can already see Perplexity's AI already start to produce the output, right? So answering my question directly, I didn't even have to put in like the key terms, right? Just ask it in natural language. What are different workout plans? It is coming up. Types of workout plans. Strength training. What's my goal? To build muscle size, strength and power, endurance training, HIIT, so on and so forth. Yeah, I think there are sufficient details here which are quite powerful if you want to deep dive them, right? But I want you to pay attention to the footnotes at the end. If you mouse over them, you will see that these are actually different sources of information all across the web that Perplexity had drawn from. So in other words, AI had done the first cut of extracting information all across the web, and you can actually look at the sources that they have drawn from. And I think this is extremely powerful. It gives you the assurance of where the information comes from, so you can double check it and you can fact check it. Okay, now let's try asking a further question, right? Because maybe the more I read this, the more I think to myself, hey, you know what? Maybe this doesn't just apply to my students. Maybe you could apply to, say, other adults like myself or even to my parents. So let's ask a follow-up question. What workout plans would be more appropriate for teenage footballers, for middle-aged adults, speaking from personal pain, middle-aged adults, and then finally elderly persons. And let's see what it comes back with, right? retrieving workout plans tailored for teenage footballers, middle-aged adults, and elderly persons. Okay, let's see what it comes back with. Adapting to different life stages requires ensuring safety, development, specific needs of each group. So actually, I'll be quite curious to see what are the needs of each group, right? So teenage footballers, I want to build this in a safe, age-appropriate way, building agility and speed. Even develops a weekly plan for me. My goodness, I could have just run much of my PT just using this. Middle-aged adults, okay, I want to maintain muscle mass, so actually that's a problem for me. I need to build muscle mass first. Cardiovascular health, mobility, functional strength, prevent injury. Yep, that sounds about right. Then lastly, elderly persons. Okay, so what I wanted to demonstrate using this query is that you can ask further questions on top of what you have previously asked, and you can actually target it to specific interest groups per se. Okay. Okay, I think this should be it. Okay, I think that's sufficient for Perplexity. And you see, even there are even like related questions that you can search with. So if what suits teenage footballers for developing speed and agility, in case you know you didn't have a sharp query to begin with. Okay, and then you just go on and search. Now here's a question. What happens if you need to produce a report, not just something that answers an immediate question, like a quick web search could answer? What happens if your boss is asking you produce a 20-page report on a certain kind of thing? Okay, so that's where Gemini's deep research comes in. Okay, so let's use a similar kind of query and throw it to Gemini's deep research to see what I can produce as a research report, right? So I want them to research about exercise workout plans, including details about sets and reps, like repetitions, and physical fitness more broadly. And I want it to be targeted. So I want it to draw from academic sources, especially from sports science and physiotherapy. Okay, then I'll just turn on the search function, deep research function, and then let's go. Very soon, the AI will try to unpack and analyze my query, and then it will produce like a sort of research plan, like a step-by-step plan on what it proposes to do for the research. There's even a caution here, right? For medical advice or diagnosis, consult a professional. Okay, so let's see what is part of its research plan. Define the core components of physical fitness, general exercise principles, drawing from academic sources in sports science and exercise physio, designing exercise workout plans, blah, 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 blah. Okay, but I don't just want to see the research plan. What happens if there are more thoughts that come to my mind? What I want to then do is I want to edit the plan, right? So for example, I could just give a comment on point 1, point 2, point 3, maybe sort of say expand on point 4, but on top of that, let's add new things, right? I also want to cover nutrition and recovery. Okay, then let's see what the Gemini deep research tool will be able to produce or tailor. Okay. There we go. In about 5 seconds, it updated the plan. Now I can already see. Okay, point 6. Examine the role of nutrition in supporting physical fitness. Where's the point about recovery? Is it about this? This looks like about injury recovery. Yeah, so I'm pretty satisfied with this. Let's assume I'm satisfied with this. Let's kick off the research. So start research process. Now this will take about maybe 10 to 15 minutes, so perhaps you can come back to it later. What you're seeing now on screen is actually the thinking behind the AI's research. I don't know whether you'll be able to display it in time, but in my other experiences, you can actually see step by step the kind of sources that it's looking at, the kind of questions that it's asking of the sources. Okay. But perhaps while we're waiting for that, we can just take a look at some of the other sets of reports that I've asked you to generate. So while practicing for this video, I asked you to generate this report. Similar kind of questions that I asked. Okay, so this report titled Exercise, Science, Nutrition and Recovery. A long report. Okay, let's see. Core components of physical fitness, cardiorespiratory endurance, flexibility, so on and so forth. You can see this is an extremely professionally done report. Even has table form. Very, very, very extensive. Okay. And if you wanted to, you can export this as a Google document, which is why I really like the Gemini deep research feature. Okay, we can come back to this later on in the video, perhaps once it's done. Let me just make some closing comments on the research tools. Okay, so how might you use this? For Perplexity, what I use it for is all the quick queries, comparing workout plans, or for example, when I was still in education, I want to find exciting and interesting lesson examples, then I can just use Perplexity. For Gemini's deep research tool, actually one of the things that I use it for is to self-learn topics that I may not have an opportunity to have learned back in university or even at work. I'll just throw in a report on something that I'm interested in, on philosophy or whatever, and then I just go and learn it myself. Okay, so I hope that you can start to appreciate how these tools sort of revolutionize research, right? I remember back when I was teaching my students about research, I had to tell them, Mr. Ong used to go to the library. I had to borrow like 10 plus books when I'm trying to write an essay. And then you look at me just like mouth like open wide in shock, right? When they find out I have to read through like 300 pages worth of notes of a book and realize, hey, actually this doesn't quite answer my question. I need to read another book, and then I have to manually do this over and over again. And then they're shocked, right? They're saying like, actually, why not you just Google it, right? Like you just Google the search returns, just click the first item, then is there anyone? But obviously, I mean, if this existed when I was a student, then that would be great, but obviously it didn't. But even then, when we think about how we have been currently doing our research, right, even Google itself is so limited, right? If I input a term, I am usually limited to my top 3 to 5 results. Let's be honest. I only read the first few things, and if I don't find anything relevant or credible there, I have to go and restart the whole process again. In contrast, you have AI enhanced research, right, where I can specify my source types, draw from academic journals, draw from government white papers, draw from think tanks, and it's trained on the entire web data that's available. And when it produces the reports, hopefully we can see it later. You will see a very nice and professionally done report that's been drawn out. Okay. Now let's move on to the next tool. This is going to be on knowledge management. Everybody's favorite topic, right? Knowledge management. Okay. Just kidding. What's knowledge management? It's about collecting, organizing, retaining, and using past knowledge. This first part talks about how we acquire the knowledge, and the knowledge can be in the form of PDFs, it could be your email threads, it could be your Slack messages, it could be notes of meeting, whatever. The key point is actually the next part, right? In a way that's searchable, summarized, and contextual. We don't just want knowledge for knowledge's sake. They must and be actionable pieces of information surface at the right point of time. Okay, so for that, let me just demonstrate what NotebookLM is about. It's a free tool by Google. I think it's a free tool. Okay, so this is what NotebookLM looks like when you just click into the website. It'll show you different notebooks you have. So what's a notebook? Let's click into this. Okay, let me move my fat face out of the way. There are 3 parts to this interface. Left part are your sources. Middle part is your chat. Third part are your studio and notes. I'll just go through this shortly. And I'll just share the context for this, right? In terms of self-learning, I was thinking about Singapore's GST. There were questions raised about whether raising the GST and at this point in time were they wise ideas, and I realized that actually I had no idea whether this was good or bad. So I needed to go and build up my own understanding about Singapore's fiscal and monetary policy, right? Like how does this even work? And so what I did, if I just look at the left-hand side, under the sources, I can actually curate the kind of sources that I want to have my information drawn from. I don't just want to have any random joker on the internet telling me what's up. Instead, I want to upload my files. So for example, because it's a Google tool, I can upload it from Google Drive, Google Docs, Google Sites, and even YouTube videos. So what you see on your left here are entire lecture videos on monetary and fiscal policies. Right? They're entire lectures. They are documentaries about Singapore's reserves, our sovereign wealth funds, and so on and so forth. And I just dumped everything, including a deep research report, into this interface. And this becomes a knowledge base or the sources of information I'm drawing from. So I could ask questions. For example, what are the main sources of Singapore's tax revenue? And then it produces this very, very long reply. And similarly, mouse over the footnotes. They tell you exactly which source the information have been extracted from. I can ask follow-up questions, evaluate the long-term sustainability. And again, this is not a broad AI evaluation. It's drawing from the evaluation inherent in the sources that you have provided. And this is actually powerful. Okay, so let me just explain what you see on the right-hand side, because it's about the output of NotebookLM. It can produce like a podcast kind of style. It simulates 2 AI podcasters talking about your content. I'm not going to click through it. There's even this interactive mode in beta stage now, where you can sort of speak to the AI and they provide real-time changes in their responses. There's a notes section where you can put in your previous questions. You can even have a mind map of your content, right? So the kind of output is going to be very different. You can click a study guide, briefing doc, so on and so forth. Okay, So that would be your knowledge management. Let's see if Gemini is ready with this. Is this going? Nope. The physiotherapy research is still ongoing. We'll try again later. Okay. Now, let's look at knowledge management on the whole. Again, I hope that you're starting to appreciate how these AI tools revolutionize and have required a change in our workflows. Our traditional KM is really a joke, right? We just save our files and emails all across the different drives, all across the folders, and maybe across even our apps. And this problem is compounded when we work in a team. So you have no idea where people are saving what. And if you want to try to rely on your memory to find all of these things and then manually skim through all of your documents, you realize it's not going to be a sustainable process, especially if your research and execution phase are separated by weeks or months. Instead, you have this centralized queryable knowledge notebook where you can ask exactly what you need and have the answers contextualized. So here is the real problem that AI enhanced KMs are trying to solve. The real problem is not that the lack of content, it's the inaccessibility of the content. And the value of knowledge is not in where and what you store, but it's in what you can use. So again, that's where this AI enhanced KM comes in, right? You ask questions within the sources you have provided, and you can have a variety of outputs. So it's extremely, extremely powerful. Okay, so let's just review what we've seen so far. We've seen some research tools, Perplexity. We've seen Gemini's deep research, and we've seen NotebookLM as a knowledge management tool. I get probably start to appreciate that some of these are stackable. The deep research research reports you have produced using Gemini can be fed into your NotebookLM in terms of your knowledge management. Then this can inform your broader research process as well. It goes back and forth. If you have found this video helpful so far, please feel free, share it with whoever else you think might benefit from this video, understanding the concepts, or even just understanding tools that you may not have seen before. And I would really, really, really appreciate it if you could give any feedback or comments on how this could be improved, what's helpful, what I could have explained more, what I could have explained less, because I'm still learning. And this video series is really just like a public service announcement, right? It's about demystifying things about AI. And if it's helpful, please share. If not, just let it die. Okay. Let's move on to the third tool on writing. What is writing? And I've proposed this very simple definition: process of discovering and developing thinking. Focusing on the first part about discovery, there's a school of thought, that you have all of these thoughts in your head. Writing just is about externalizing it onto a piece of paper or your Word doc. I think this school of thought is mistaken because for people who write on a regular basis, you realize that the thoughts that come out from your head, the stream of consciousness, is a mess. It's incoherent. It's disorganized. The act of writing develops your thinking. It is the pain and the discipline of writing and structuring it somehow, which helps your thinking to improve. Okay, so I'll come back to this in a future video about why I do have my doubts about where AI tools should come in. Just because you can do something with AI doesn't mean you should. Okay, but first let me just demonstrate what ChatGPT's Canvas can do to support your writing. Okay, so let's just go to ChatGPT. Okay, under your tools, let's see, ChatGPT Canvas. Okay, so write a story about Michael Jordan coming to Singapore, joining the Singapore Slingers. Okay, this will be Singapore's national basketball team. Let's go for 3 paragraphs. This is obviously completely fictional, right? There's no way a bajillionaire like Michael Jordan will ever come to Singapore. Okay, so you see ChatGPT is already coming up the window. It's a split screen. Left-hand side of the screen is your interface. You can sort of like ask for the questions. Right side is like magic. This is where the canvas shows you the text that's coming out. And this is what I generated in a matter of seconds. It's ridiculous. In a move that shocked the basketball world, Jordan, legendary NBA Hall of Famer, announced that he would be joining the Singapore Slingers. Blah, blah, blah. 62, Jordan said this wasn't a comeback, but a contribution, so on and so forth. Okay, so what can we do, right? So this ChatGPT Canvas allows me to just make direct edits to it. I can have my usual like bolding, italicizing, so on and so forth. But more than that, actually, here's where the power is, right? Let's just highlight a certain section. Then maybe I can just ask ChatGPT something. I just want to make an edit, right? So let's say Jordan has this code here. I want to expand on this code. Let's make it even more exciting, right? ChatGPT is going to look at the relevant section you highlighted. It's going to analyze your query, and it's just going to make a real question, make a real edit right there in a matter of seconds. It's mind blowing. I hope you can start to see this is really quite incredible, right? And you can make big edits not just linearly, paragraph by paragraph, point by point. What happens if you want to change the tone entirely or change the length entirely? For example, what happens if I want to make this story worthy for primary school kids? So let's make a change. Okay, so for primary school kids, maybe you want to make it slightly shorter. Okay, so let's reduce the length of the story by 10%. Let's just write a number. Also, ensure that the tone and diction can be assessed by primary school students. And now what you will see is it's going to review the entire document. Just imagine, like say this is like an entire page. Well, if it's making the edits immediately, shortening it by 10%, presumably, I'm not going to check. And then the tone. Suddenly you start to see the tone becomes a little bit more simpler, a little bit more exciting, right? Writ large. If you have an entire writing project, this is going to be extremely powerful. Okay. Now let's come back to the writing use cases. I hope you also can start to appreciate how powerful this is, right? Traditionally, writing, we all know there's a blank page anxiety. The challenge is going from 0 to 1, and without a clear structure in your head, it's going to be very difficult. Versus, like, say, AI, I've shown what it looks like if you just prompt AI, but actually you can get AI to ask you questions to further its writing. You can see that in the second video. When it comes to shaping ideas, if you want to make any corrections or make any iterations, instead of doing it line by line, like you would ordinarily have done, what happens if you want to sort of change the tone for the entire document? You can do that instantaneously. And then, again, so back to the editing phase, right? If you want to make any revisions, traditionally it would be very manual, very time consuming. If, like, say, you're writing an email to your colleagues or your boss or whatever, right? Actually, the main point is there, the content is there. You're just trying to adjust the tone, see whether there's any missing points that you need to add in. Well, you can use AI to do that from now on. So your communication actually becomes a lot sharper. Okay, let's see whether Gemini is already done with the report. No, it's not done. Okay, don't worry. Okay. Then in that case, let me just draw to a close in this video, right? I think what I've done is to demonstrate the use of 3 tools where AI offers like real value to the average working professional in the areas of research. You can see how it accelerates how you source for information, how you synthesize information. For knowledge management, retrieve insights from your otherwise very messy, forgotten files and whatnot. And then your third tool is on writing. Helps you to get started, helps you to reshape ideas, tighten your tone, and you are in the driver's seat. You are the one controlling this. However, these 3 tools that I've just listed, they're only as good as the way you use them. And that's where the next video on techniques come in, where I explain some advanced techniques for prompting. We'll shift our focus from what we can use in terms of tools to how we can think. And I hope to cover some of the techniques and the processes that unlock more powerful use cases of AI. Again, if you found this helpful, just share with somebody else that you know. If you have any comments, any suggestions, please let me know. Thanks.